David, what did we talk about in this episode?
Yeah, we talked about a lot of different
Mm,
pieces, I think, of a lot of different things, but there was a bit about my own background and
yeah,
just different aspects of things that make up who I am.
yeah.
Um, but we also touch on
Like,
podcasting,
yeah, why
how
you
we,
started.
yeah, why I started,
Yeah.
um, the heart behind Third Culture Kingdom,
Mm,
and also
how we
technicals
make it
on
work. Yeah,
podcasting
yeah.
and the logistics of what has been
Successful.
successful
Mm-hmm.
or rewarding
Yeah,
and what has been challenging.
yeah.
So that is what we've covered so far.
Cool. Then let's get started listening.
Welcome to Chai with Ping. This is Ping Robert. In this podcast, I cover underrepresented and personal stories. Join me with a cup of chai and take a listen.
Recording. Welcome back to Try with Ping. My name is Ping Robert. Today we have a content creator, and I have the honor to listen to his show. And we decided to do a collaboration. And his podcast is called Third Culture Kingdom, and we're gonna interview him to let him talk about it. Let's welcome David.
What's up? What's up? Nice to meet you, Ping. Finally, for the first time.
I
Thanks for having
know.
me.
I heard a lot about you, and a common friend, Sean, who was previously on the show, introduced me to your show. And then I started listening. I think, especially the Life Matters, that episode really touches me. It's just like, I think that kind of triggered my curiosity to invite you. So, but like I have been, just waiting because I didn't want to invite you in the very early stage of my podcast. But thank you so much for coming to the show.
For sure, for sure. Yeah. I mean, even I think the episode you're referencing is the one that I called A Letter to Black Brothers and Sisters,
Yes.
um, which was basically a letter I wrote, basically kind of embodying what would and what would a letter from an Asian American look like who has maybe been seeing history from an objective perspective, like seeing the experiences of themselves and of Black brothers and sisters over the last uh 300 years, and so it was kind of written from that place, and uh yeah, I mean, obviously with everything going on in society, felt like it was something that was on my heart to share, and especially because I think that Asian Americans and Asians in America um, are in a very interesting spot in regards to race relations, and I guess the conversation of racial identity, one that kind of has one step in um, the pain, I think that many uh, people of color have experienced, but also have some of the benefits that other groups might have. Um, so
I haven't been to the US for long enough to say that. However, I do think Asian Americans usually are quite silent in that way, in the racial justice, and especially towards Black Lives Matters. I feel like a lot of rhetoric or narrative is around white and black, but like I think you made a very good point, starting from the Asian Americans' point of view and how you kind of support them in that way. Before we jump into your content, I would like to invite you to talk a little bit about your background for the listeners to know a little bit more about you.
yeah, so I was born and raised in Colorado. I'm ethnically Chinese. Definitely thankful and uh, thankful to be American and born here. Childhood was pretty smooth sailing, loving parents, pretty carefree, safe, nurturing environment. Probably wasn't until junior, senior high when life was, revealed that it isn't all, roses and great, but that there's a lot of challenges and a lot of difficulty. Grew up in the church as well, so that also was something that impacted a lot of my life and shaped a lot of my life. And then during junior, senior high, played basketball for 4 of those years, 4 out of 6, and then ended up going to Baylor University over in Waco, Texas, and after that, got a job in Austin, Texas, and so I'm posted up there, and yeah, just living life and trying to, take the next step in the journey. So that's a little bit about me.
So you mentioned that life got a little tougher in high school. What happened? I'm really curious about like how you guys talk about difficulties in high schools, because I've never been to a high school over here.
Yeah, I think middle school and high school here is really interesting. And then another aspect of, going through high school here is, experiencing it as an Asian American, as somebody who's, first generation, American, born in America, and having those things shape your high school experience and middle school experience more than I think what we realized at the time. And so the reason why I say that is because I think there's I think probably around middle school, high school, teenage years, adolescent years is when maybe a lot of that identity formation happens for people. And during that time, the way that you've grown up as an Asian American, usually, or I mean, and I think this applies to anybody as well, but maybe the way that you were raised and the values that were taught to you as like, oh, this is good, this is what you're measured against. You go into middle school and high school and realize that maybe how you've measured yourself against these standards are not the way that other people are measuring themselves or you up to. So maybe the values are no longer the same, and I'll give an example of that, right? In Asian culture, like sometimes I think that being, I don't know the right word for it, maybe it's like scholarly or
Oh yeah,
like a little more,
studious, academic, focused.
a little more what's the word, like composed and not like expressive, like that's kind of seen as more mature.
Yeah, reserved.
Yeah, that's kind of seen as like maturity. But like in American culture, that's kind of just seen as like shy, or seen as something that's like, oh, like, why would you not express yourself? Why would you not say anything if you're having a problem? And, like those values are just different, like maybe being more expressive is like valued and seen as something that's more, valuable. And so, when you realize that, you're like, oh shoot, now I need to maybe, I mean, you can live the way that you have always lived, and that you expect, that you think you should, which is, I think is great, I think, but people just, as a teenager, you don't know, people are just trying to figure themselves out. And so, once you have that realization, that's like, oh, wow, like my parents' standards are not necessarily the standards that other people have, or how maybe I think I should be, or they think I should be. And so then, you're just in conflict with those two things. And so, you start to figure out, hey, is this what I'm supposed to do? Or is that what I'm supposed to do? And, middle school and high school for me was a lot of, okay, like, I think for the first time in my life, maybe I'm more aware of, those differences in, values or or expressions. And also I think being more self-aware that like, oh yeah, like almost all my like basketball teammates are white, and I'm like the only Asian dude, so like stuff like that you're just like, oh, I didn't really think about this when I was younger, that like, oh, I was just one of the dudes, and now it's like, oh yeah, like, haha, I guess like I'm Asian, so yeah, that's like a little bit, I guess, of middle school, high school.
I have a question. Was there a moment that you realize that you're different from other people? Or you just mentioned that if we Asians kind of, the culture is more reserved, or, we kind of become humble to hold back our opinions or not to express a lot of emotions. Was there a moment or example or something happened that you feel like, oh, this is not the American culture, the mainstream culture?
I think there were probably multiple moments where, we realized that like, I think it was just made like, for whatever reason, I think people like made you more aware of it. Like people would say certain things that, probably I think made in jest, or made in like not really thinking much about it. Like, but you'd hear like some stereotypical things that are like, I mean, it's funny because, you have, people get good grades and stuff. Right. And like, as a kid, for me, and probably some other, Asian, kids growing up, it was kind of like, oh yeah, like this schoolwork maybe doesn't seem like the most difficult, like, you kind of were given summer homework, or you're given, things to shape up your, stuff during breaks, and, oh, we finished our homework, give you more homework. Like, and, oh, got a, you get a test result back, and it's like a 90 or something. And, you know how kids are, and they're like, oh, what'd you get? It's like, oh yeah, like I got a 90. And they're like, oh, of course you did, like you're Asian,
Oh,
and,
okay.
and it's like, and it's interesting because you'd be like, it's like, why would you say that? Because it's like, I mean, you're like, I like worked on it, like I studied, or you're like, oh, I got a 94, like, but it's almost like people being
put
like,
a label on you.
Yeah, they kind of be like, oh yeah, of course though, like, like, and so it almost felt like it like that label like took away a little bit of like you actually doing well.
Oh yeah, it's almost a label for replacing your efforts.
Yeah, that's how it feel. That's how it would feel. And so, I mean, kids, like teenagers are, trying to figure out life and whatever. So it's not like, who knows why people say it. But I think at the end of the day, it's people, trying to, not necessarily make sense of things, though I think a little bit, but also maybe try and make them feel better, and also, maybe you kind of like feel the same way as them. But whatever the reason is, I think those are different experiences that you go through. And or or I thought of another story growing up of I remember there's this other Asian girl in my class, or in the school, and she was a grade ahead of me. But I remember so I was playing basketball in that year. One of the first year I was, at my junior high, and the girl, I think she like said it as like kind of to try and make a connection, try and make like what's the word, like camaraderie, like when she greeted me. But like she came in the room and she's like, oh, like what's up, Yao Ming, like it's Yao Ming, like and it's funny though because I think back then you're kind of like like I said, there's this like it's a weird tension that you feel because I think there's like a bit of you that's almost like, yeah, like I'm like I like you can, it's, to an extent it kind of felt like, oh, like you can say that because it's like you're Asian, and so like we kind of have that, like we get what it's like, you know. But there's also another part that kind of you know, maybe we could reference to what I just said, right, where you're kind of like, oh, like, but what if I want to be like LeBron, or what if I want to be like somebody else,
Oh
you know? Like, so
yeah.
there's this weird tension. So there's like, you know, a bit that you're kind of like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, like that actually is like you saying that
Yeah.
like makes me like remember and kind of remind me that like, oh, like you see this, like you see that we're like different, you know, but we're also you know, but you're not necessarily always want to be like pointed out for that either, you
I feel
know?
it's a different
So
box that you might or might not want to be in.
right, yeah,
Right.
yeah,
It's like
yeah,
because she mentioned Yao Ming because it's just we are Asians, we're Chinese ethnic, but like,
right,
yeah, I think you got a point. It's like usually a lot of identities that we perceived are given by others. And then
sure.
I started thinking, is like, how do we form our own identities? Do you have any important identities that kind of embed in your life?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So I think some of those different identities that you know have really been important in my life. The first one has been just follower and disciple of Jesus. Like I could get into that more, but just my relationship with him and how that's impacted my life has been really instrumental in my growth, my development, and relationships with people. Um, with that, you know, like as you can tell, you know, I'm Asian, and that, you know, has impacted the way that you know I've experienced life, you know, and also like of course, you know, as a brother, as a son, um, you know, those identities have also, you know, been very instrumental in developing who I am and you know the values that I carry, and then you know, you just a student, you know, learning, always learning. I think student of life, trying to learn and grow in that way. So those are a couple identities, you know, and or roles, I guess you could say, that yeah, not just roles, but yeah, I mean parts of my who I am that have been very important.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely. I think we share several same identities. But are those identities the reason that you started your podcast?
Uh, I mean, yes and no.
Okay.
I think um, I think no, in the sense that it's not like I really thought about those things, you know, intentionally, I guess, like, oh, I'm this, oh, I'm that, or but I think, you know, I was definitely aware of how those things have impacted my life. And so so I guess your question was, you know, like, so yes, in the fact that I was like aware of all these things, and I think that it's, yeah, important to be aware of the different aspects of your life that make up who you are, um, and kind of how that informs you on the experiences that you've had and what's going on in the world.
Cool. And so before you started your podcast, what were the goals that you set for yourself?
Yeah, I mean, if if I'm being real, like I didn't really have many goals
Okay.
specifically
Yeah.
for the website, for the podcast, or anything. Originally, I kind of just started like I started Third Culture Kingdom as a website,
Mm-hmm.
just kind of not really sure where I was gonna go. I wrote a blog post sharing some of my story about feeling, you know, different, about feeling like a stranger to like to the people close to me at home, as a teenager, feeling like a stranger um, to people at school, to like everybody, and kind of being like, I feel like nobody knows me, but then ultimately also feeling like a stranger to myself and being like, who am I really? And so it kind of just started off, as a blog, kind of sharing some of my story, and then kind of just as time moved on, things progressed to new ideas and new um, uh, things that I wanted to try. So it's kind of how it started.
Yeah. But like you started with, written text, like blogging, right? But then
uh,
how did you choose this new media form to
sure.
make a podcast?
Yeah. So it, it's kind of funny because I think prior to making the website, I had just like one weekend, I actually took a few days to like go to um, a friend's place. This was probably like last year. I just wanted to kind of clear my mind and just spend time by myself. So I ended up staying at a friend's place and just kind of being there by myself. And I remember one night kind of just like jotting down ideas of like things I wanted to do. And this idea of starting a podcast, like came up, and I just like started writing down ideas that I had. And then, um, time passed, and I kind of like I honestly didn't even start about like actually carrying that out. But started the website, and then after amount of time, I kind of was messing around with audio stuff and audio recording, and uh, decided to just try and see what it was like. So uh, that was kind of logistically how things started. I think the heart behind starting a podcast really was knowing that I think there's power in storytelling. There's power in um, hearing stories that connect with people, telling stories and having your story heard, and telling your story is very powerful for individuals, and also for people that hear it, and just knew that a lot of stories and conversations that I've heard and had with people were ones that like I want to have told, and that kind of started the direction towards making a podcast.
Why did you name it Third Culture Kingdom?
Yeah, so the name really comes from kind of a lot of the things that we've mentioned already. I think that as individuals, people can place labels on us very easily. I mean, I think it's just a human thing to do, right? It's like, oh, I see this. Like, what are the things associated with that? And, but, people are obviously a lot more complex than we think they are. Um, but I also like to think that people are a lot more simple than we think they are as well. like, we all have basic core needs that, we all, desire and need, like we all need food, we all need water, we all need, shelter, we all need relationship with people, community, we all need intimacy in those relationships. But like the way that we try and get those things, or the way that we pursue those things can be very different. So, so the way that the way that third culture kingdom kind of came about was knowing that there was all these different aspects of life, that are important to people, faith, background, culture, society, us as individuals, personality, knowing that those are all very important things that make up people. But so many times we can boil our conversations or notions about people through like, one word or something, right? It's like, oh, he's Asian, she's, white, she's, a teacher, he's Christian, she's Muslim. And we can like say all those things. But like behind it, there's actually a lot of meaning behind those words that we're like, people are saying too. It's like, well, what do you mean that like, oh, this person is that, like, this person is a teacher. Well, like, what do they teach? Like, why did they start teaching in the first place? And there's like all these things that we can miss when like not actually engaging in that space. So really, like third culture kingdom, I kind of think about it like a Venn diagram a little bit. Like sometimes you have two or more topics or areas of study, and at that intersection kind of is actual like space that is more difficult to explore. It's more difficult to explain because it's not just one or the other. It's it's both, and it's yes and. So that was kind of the heart and the thought process behind the name. It was really wanting it to just be a space where people could learn, explore, and engage in stories and topics that people may want to know more and learn more about, but just not have a space for that.
Absolutely, yeah. I think you cover a lot of different topics that I listen to. It's like mental health or even basketball, and just we mentioned that letter to the Black brothers and sister. So how did you choose those topics and to whom you want to talk to?
Sure, yeah. So how the topics were chosen, it's kind of been a fluid situation. In the beginning stages. I think at least for the episodes that have come out, the first series that I dropped was just about chaos and like chaos essentials. What do we actually like need during that time? What can actually be drawn out from chaos? And that's not to diminish the fact that like, the fact that you're still standing in the midst of chaos, the fact that you're still enduring or taking your next step, whatever that is, like that's to be applauded, that you just made it. But yeah, I mean, I kind of just want to engage people in the midst of the year that we've been in. And some of those topics specifically were just things that I knew were important to not just people that I was that I wanted to hear it, but also I knew that the people that I had on the podcast were passionate about those things, and passionate about the experiences that they've had that have embodied community or creativity or courage or whatnot. So I mean, I think that that's kind of where the topics have come from. Even the love and basketball one has kind of talks about relationships, actually dating and marriage, and I kind of drew some inspiration from Change Church over in New Jersey. They kind of did a series on relationships, like, and kind of some of the parallels there are with in love and basketball. But yeah, so that's kind of how some of the topics have come about. It just kind of has been trying to figure out what are topics that young adults and anybody will want to explore and engage in, and what are different perspectives or voices that I know or that I have had interaction with who would want to speak into this, and that I appreciate and respect a lot. So
I particularly like the episode I interviewed. I think her name is Grace or Gracella.
Yeah, Gracella. Yeah.
Yeah. And how did you guys meet? Because I know she's somewhere far. Is it in Indonesia or somewhere?
Yeah, she's in Indonesia. Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, her and
Shout out to her. Hi, Gracella.
Yeah. For real.
Yeah.
Yeah, for real. She's a friend I met when I was in Indonesia. I actually went, I was there a year and a half ago, through some pretty crazy circumstances. And yeah, her and I met there, it kind of in the community that I was a part of over there. She's, an artist and very, very talented, very, very skilled. And yeah, we had connected over there. And so, like when I thought of creativity, I was like, yo, I'm going to try and get her on here. I think, her story and her, voice and obviously, her talent, really, really kind of drew me to having her on. So
cool. Let's get a little bit more technical. Like, how do you actually make podcast? We can have a conversation about that, because I probably use different things. But you already mentioned that you use Audacity to edit the sounds. What platform? Like, there's no promotion for any platform, but like, how did you choose a platform to upload it?
Technically, I actually feel like making a podcast is not as difficult as people think it is.
But so many people are like, just like scared of taking that step.
Right. I think probably the thing that I'm more scared of, or people that are more scared of, is probably just being heard, like, and actually letting themselves be known.
Yeah.
It can be, scary, feeling like your thoughts and your emotions and even your heart is kind of out there and in public. But technically, like I think I chose Anchor. I had heard about it a few times. As a platform, and it was pretty simple, and they also have some music type thing, like options that you can add to your clips and whatnot. So I'd heard about it from somebody else. I'd seen their podcast, and to be honest, I even when I saw it at the time, I was like, nah, I'm not, I don't know if I'm going to do this or not. But I've heard of other ones that are good. Man, I'm trying to think of them now. Now trying to think about them is hard.
I know. A lot of them we need to pay.
Right. There's
Anchor is
definitely a good
free.
amount. Yeah, Anchor is
Yeah.
free. There's, what is it, like Buzz, like, I don't remember. Let me see.
Yeah.
Buzzsprout.
There,
Yeah,
yeah,
Buzzsprout
something
is
like
one
that.
that I've
And
heard of.
Simple Cast or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Simplecast. I mean, there's a couple out there.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I chose that one, just kind of a little bit out of convenience, but
Yeah.
also because of some of the features that they had, um, with the music and whatnot.
Yeah.
And then, in terms of making the podcast, I mean, really, it's recording the audio. Um,
So
I,
do you use Zoom or Skype, or how do you record? Because I know some of the guests are not in your state.
right, yeah. So I've been using Zoom,
Yeah.
but once things clear up, I hope to do some in person.
Yeah.
And yeah, make some uh, some content there.
Yeah.
But I've been using Zoom
Mm-hmm.
to record, and then Audacity to
Mm-hmm.
edit, and then yeah, platform,
Yeah.
Anchor, and then
Yeah.
also just posting some of the stuff to the Third Culture Kingdom website as well. So
Mm.
that's kind of the gist of it. I think maybe the more difficult part is coming up with actually top
The
or
content.
yeah, the content
Yeah.
itself, ideas and whatnot. um, but that takes some time. But maybe for me it's actually the opposite. Like, it's
Mm-hmm.
actually hard for me to just carry out all these things that I have planned to do.
Oh,
um,
okay.
ideas and ideas and like the conceptual part of like,
Yeah.
you know formulating what to talk about, or
Mm-hmm.
series or whatnot. Those things are
Yeah.
like pretty easy for me,
Okay.
actually. It's
Oh.
just more difficult to sit down and be like, okay, now need to record with this person and
Yeah.
set up this time
Yeah.
and make this graphic and do this. Like, it's just more
Ah.
hard to to actually execute it. So but that's just
Got
me.
it.
I know that.
Yeah. Do you usually plan out series of topics? Because, like, for me, it's just like whoever comes to the show, I'll talk about that topic, and
Right.
there's no series
Sure.
formed.
Yeah. So at first I kind of had a couple episodes that were just kind of not really in series.
Yeah.
But I think the more that I thought about it, at least I felt like it was important to do series, because I think um, the the question that comes to mind for me is, like, what's the story you're trying to tell, and
Mm-hmm.
like who you're trying to connect with.
Yeah.
And I think that many times it's a lot easier for people to follow if you have a cohesive story that you're telling. And I think in series type form it's easier to um, keep people uh, following along the journey. But that's kind of what I've been thinking with that.
Because we are freelancer and it's just like amateur podcasters, we don't do this for a job. So I find it a bit difficult to come up with series because, for example, I might have an international student
Sure.
for this month, and then maybe I have to
Right.
wait for another month for another
Right.
student to come
Yeah.
up.
Right.
So
Yeah.
then,
Definitely.
yeah, then how do you compile them all together? Do you like intentionally to invite those people for the series, or you just kind of wait it out?
Yeah. So for what I have planned, and also um, some stuff that I'm working on. Yeah, I mean, I kind of have planned beforehand, like, oh, this is the series I'm doing. Who are the people that I'm going to reach out to, or that I've kind of already recorded and whatnot. And what are the steps that I need to take to make this more of like a cohesive story, and like what is the purpose I'm trying to get across and whatnot. So yeah, I mean, I definitely get what you're saying, as like kind of just people just doing this for fun. What is, like, how are we supposed to do that or whatnot. And I think I think even if you don't have a series necessarily, I think having some sort of theme or something, like, oh, maybe I think that's another, that's an idea too, right? Like, you can have people like an international student, young professional, a grandpa or a grandma, like almost, maybe if you like hear all their stories, you're like, oh, maybe this is like a theme, maybe about relationship or how they view relationship or something, like I think, just, I think it's really interesting when you can draw out those connections and, present that to people in a way that's trying to broaden people's perspective on, whatever topic it is. So, I don't know if that necessarily answers your question or whatnot.
Yeah. I think that's a good point. Drawing different people for the same topics and then probably just rearranged it a little bit to make it more consistent for the listeners to listen to as well.
Sure. Yeah.
Can you share a little success or special moments while you're making your podcast?
Yeah. I mean, it hasn't been around for too long, so it's kind of been. That's a really interesting question. I think one thing that comes to my mind is just recording the first couple episodes with my little brother. Us kind of being able to share about life,
your background,
about,
growing
childhood and whatnot.
And
it's funny because I think sometimes in these kinds of settings, like things that you would not have heard like come out, if you're just talking with somebody about whatever, if you're talking with somebody close to you in a one-on-one setting, like it can be easy to just be like, oh yeah, like this happened, haha, yeah, this happened too. But then like when you almost create an environment where you're asking like, hey, do you remember like something that made you feel isolated, or or one of your greatest accomplishments in middle school or whatnot, like you can pull out stories that maybe you've never even heard before, even though you're like somebody close to them. And so
totally
just being able to record those episodes with him was really cool. And then just I think putting out that whole series, the Chaos Essentials series was really cool, and I think trying to support my friends, who I had on the podcast, like Gracella and Cody, and Cody has his, his clothing, a clothing company, that his mom makes the clothes, like I don't know if I posted about that stuff. I posted about some of it maybe on my own social media and whatnot, but I've bought some of his, the stuff from the store that's really, really dope too. So, I mean, it's just been cool, I think trying to build a community that supports one another and kind of is creating and taking steps to, channel that passion and energy in
a more
way.
Intentional way, I feel. Yeah. I definitely had a lot of good conversation with my friends, especially we probably just start around us. So then I invite a lot of my friends to talk about different topics that I am curious about. And I ended up, just like what you said, it's like we never talk about those things so intentionally. So we thought we know each other, even with the closest friends or family, but then they reveal even deeper thoughts.
Yeah.
And then, so for me, it's like every time when I have done an interview, it's like, I feel like I even learned a lesson from that person.
Yeah, no, that's also one of the coolest things I think has just been learning, about their thought process, their execution process, but also, their thoughts, their perspectives, their heart on, all these different things, and then hearing their story, like different stories in their life as well.
Yeah. Like
those things are really priceless, I think. Those are a couple, I guess, of special moments, I guess, for me. And it's been cool just being able to facilitate, these conversations and engaging people there.
Yeah. Before we get to the next question, I just want to remind the listeners to find out Third Culture Kingdom for David's podcast. And I will also link some of the episodes that we mentioned, like Grace, Gracella, and Cody, even Sean. And shout out to Aaron, that are common friends. And he's also in Colorado right now. So I'll put all the links in the description box below. So David, is there any difficult moments? You probably already mentioned that it's like putting the work done, like to really excuse it is hard. Is there any other challenging part of the process?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot, I'm sure. I think, um, execution, that's the hardest one for me. But I think in addition to that, it's, um, and this is probably for some, some creators or whoever, but one is, just making the time for it, right? Like if this isn't your job, but I mean, the fact is, if you like doing it and you love doing it, like you're going to go do it. So, I think for me, some of the challenges has been, having lulls in like my productivity with this, just because you're like, oh, I'm going through this and this is hard. And, like, oh, I don't feel like creating today. I don't feel like, I want to, put out more stuff because I'm not in the mood or whatnot. And so, just discipline, I think, and carrying that out is one challenge. I think, another challenge, to be honest, I think, I mean, and maybe this is like an overarching thing and not necessarily, oh, this is like one challenge, but I think the overarching thing is kind of just battling yourself. I think you can have, sometimes you can come up with ideas that you're like, oh, I think this is really good, but you can also get scared, because you're like, what if, people don't like it? Or what if, I don't think this will, uh, be received in the way that I want it to. I think that, I think you can also get like complacent. I mean, I don't know. And maybe this all sounds like, oh, I've done this forever. But I mean, for myself, it's like, oh, I put out a series and you're like, great. Like, what next? You're kind of like, I think consistency,
Yeah.
is like a difficulty where you're like, okay, like, are you able to, do this consistently and actually, continue creating even when you
Yeah.
don't feel like it? Are you able to, host and give some of yourself away, when you're like,
Yes.
to keep on creating.
Mm.
And I guess some of that just comes with taking care of yourself and making sure that, you have habits and systems in place to make sure that you're all right as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, that was kind of roundabout in many ways, but,
Yeah.
yeah, that's some of the challenges, I guess I would say.
Yeah. As you were talking, I thought of one word, discipline.
Yeah. No,
It really
discipline.
requires a lot of discipline if we want to produce consistently and just have like enough in stock,
Yeah.
like in a almost like we have a episode bank. And
Right.
so I
Yeah.
have to pay attention to that and when to publish whatever.
Right.
Yeah. It takes some effort to remember and keep track on
Yes. Yeah.
everything.
Organization,
Hmm.
scheduling. It's like all that stuff. It's like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, like, oh, let me try and, figure this out, write this
Yeah.
all down. Um,
Do
yeah.
you have an organization style or a tool that you use? Because I use a spreadsheet. I just laid out every person, date, and whatever to
Right.
do.
Right. I hadn't been actually using anything, so
So it's all in here in your head.
sometimes I'll just write it down on paper,
Oh,
but
okay.
but actually recently, I've started to put things down on electronically,
Yeah.
on like spreadsheets or whatnot. But
Yeah.
I've been trying to figure out, ways to do that as well. So that's important. But
Yeah.
I don't
Oh,
have
I'll
anything
show
at the
you my
moment.
spreadsheet if you want.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
yeah. So
Cool.
I've been putting some stuff down on spreadsheets, but
Yeah. Wow. All right. Cool. Any suggestions or tips for people who want to start their podcasts? I
man,
feel we're so new and we're getting suggestions, but we have been doing at least, some time already.
yeah. I mean, to be honest, I probably wouldn't give much advice
Hmm.
technically.
Yeah.
Like, I think a lot more of my advice would be, um, like understanding your own heart behind why you're starting
Mm,
what you're doing.
yeah.
And then after that, it would be, you know, some different questions to ask yourself, like kind of, you know, like, are you willing to, like, you know, give your, like, pour out yourself to people in this way,
Yeah, in the
you know,
public.
and that kind of goes into the why a little bit, but also, you know, like, what are you really like? One question that was asked to me actually before I started my podcast a little bit was kind of like, yeah, like, what is stopping you from it? You know, like, and I think that can reveal a lot. You know, are you like scared? Are you, you just feel like it's, you know, too much work? Is it like, so I think asking yourself, you know, like, why, what's holding you back from it? Um, and, uh, to be honest, it's just probably, you know, put in the work and also make sure you take care of yourself. Like I said, kind of like the self-care thing. Yeah, got to make sure that you're in a healthy space. I think that a lot of people can probably burn out too, you know, just like doing the same thing over again, pouring themselves out, and they kind of, you know, after a period of time be like, why do I feel this way? And you're like, oh, well, because like you haven't been taking care of yourself, and like, you know, you maybe are doing all these things, but you don't have community, you know, you don't have real like relationship with people or whatnot. So take care of yourself, and then being willing to put in the work, which I think is what a lot of people, including myself, struggle with. So
Yeah, absolutely. So I think both of us, we're one person team, right? Because you do it. Do you have any support from other people? No.
nah.
Everything from start to the end, the same
Yeah,
one person.
everything from the start to the end. It's just all me
Yeah.
right now. I'm like, hey, maybe one day, maybe one day,
I know.
maybe one day I'll have I'll have
A
some people.
partner. Yeah, yeah. I've been trying to get some people to do it together, but it's just so hard.
Yeah.
I'm
Hey,
still
I
new
got
to
a
the
question for
country.
you. I got a
Yeah,
question for you.
sure.
What do
Sure.
you dislike most about like podcast stuff? Like what do you like, oh, this is the part that like, oh, I don't love.
Oh, I think promoting it.
Promoting
I
it.
I am a good salesperson. However, if I'm selling the same thing, like, you know, on Facebook and on Instagram, I just feel like I'm dropping things into the water and without any feedback. Because like it's not like a lot of people are hitting likes or subscribing it, so I don't
Sure.
see like a huge increase
Sure.
in my
Sure.
listening
Sure.
audience.
Okay. I got
So
you.
that's just like I guess I wanted some more interaction with the
Right.
audience, but I
Yeah.
never hear back.
Yeah. It's the
Yeah,
marketing thing. It's the
I
marketing
know.
thing.
It's
Yeah,
so
that's hard.
hard.
That's hard. Yeah,
Yeah.
I feel you. I was thinking
So
about
and
the editing.
yeah. Oh, yeah. It requires a lot of patience. So I kind of just try to do it in, you know, when we're recording. Then I don't need to edit too much out. It's probably
Sure.
just volume and all that. And
Yeah.
you know, if someone burps, then of course I need to cut it out. But if it's just like babbling or filler words and all that, I don't really
Right.
edit that much.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I
yeah,
got you.
I think
Word.
one I think one better practice for myself is to edit right after I recorded. So then I can remind, because I might take some notes like where I need to edit out,
Sure.
or where we laugh super loud that it has to be volume
Sure.
down. So then when the memory is still fresh, I download it and then edit it and then just I export it. So I think that's easier.
No, that's good.
But some people want to do, you know, more of a monologue in the beginning or at the end of the episode. So that doesn't feel like me, because I don't want to comment that much on the content that someone else created with me. So I don't know.
Word.
Yeah. Well, listeners, if you have any questions or comments, please let us know. Let David know. You can definitely find him on Facebook and Instagram. Last question, David. What's next for you, since this is the end of 2020?
Yeah. I think that's a question I've been trying to figure out for myself as well. But yeah. So I'm I'm figuring out a lot of things in my life right now. I'll be I'll be in Texas pretty soon here. But I mean, there's a lot of cool series that I'm working on for this upcoming year. Some that I've already, worked on and just need to produce and do the work again. But been really excited for that. But there's also some pretty cool projects that I'm working on, like outside of podcast stuff, that I think that I'm really excited about taking a step into, just like creative projects and whatnot.
Is there anything that you can reveal to us?
I mean, outside of the podcast stuff, like, I think, I mean, some of the stuff that I'm thinking about are that I've been, debating to dabble into, or, just maybe more, so some work with the website.
Okay.
I think some different graphics type things, some different exploration into different arts and art forms as well. So I know maybe that doesn't give too much, but that's but
It's all right. We will wait and see.
but that's some of it. I've been thinking about dropping some of those and diving into that more. And then
Wait.
Yeah.
There's a little bird told me that you were involved with another show. Are you able to talk about that? Or where would you drop this part if you can't?
I mean, it's out there. It's out there. So like, I mean, there's not really much for me to like not talk about with it.
Okay.
I mean, I was a part of another a creative project with some other creatives out there, and it was like a project about relationships and stuff. Relationships and getting to know people on a deeper level.
Okay.
I mean, I was
How
a
can
part
we
of that.
find it?
You can find it on YouTube. It's actually from this couple. This couple, they're pretty well known in the Christian community in they're pretty well known on like the.
What's the name?
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say that. I mean, that's their YouTube channel. You can find their stuff on the Azonwus, AZONWUS. You can find their content out there. They actually put out a lot of really, really good stuff regarding relationships, regarding mental health. They're the the husband's Nigerian. The wife is she's American, Black American. And you can check out some of their stuff. They're cool. They have a lot of really, really cool stuff on their channel, and so you can find my episode, I guess you could say, on their channel. And check it out. So
all right, I'll find a link and then attach it for the audience.
I'll just say you can find it on you can just type in the Whole Truth episode.
Whole Truth episode.
The Whole Truth, David, the Azonwus, and you should be able to find it.
Okay.
So,
cool.
Yes. Yep. You can. Yep.
So I will not push you.
No. I mean, it's out there.
Stop here.
It's out there already. So it's like there's not really like. I mean, it's out there. Like it's not really something I'm working on or something that's not released. Like it's out there.
Was it fun?
Yeah.
Because I haven't watched it.
Yeah, definitely. It was fun. You just have to watch it. I mean, there's like I don't want to spoil too much of it.
Okay, cool.
It was cool though. It was definitely fun. Cool people for sure. Some great insights, and yeah, definitely the people there are really cool.
Cool. Awesome. All right. Before we go, any last thoughts to share?
I think, yeah, the last final thoughts that I have really just, invest in you, invest in others. As a, Christian, I would say, don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be like, it's normal to doubt. It's normal to, have questions, like, and don't be scared to, I think, try and seek answers and bring those things to God. I think that a lot of times the Christian faith can, or has in the past, like, really discouraged like questions, right? And kind of been like, well, just like, don't doubt, or like, don't have questions or whatnot. Because it's like, God's not too big for, like, yeah, God's like bigger than your questions. Like and so, like, don't be scared of that. And then, yeah, just, I think, yeah, we also just underestimate how much emotional and mental toll that life can have on us. So take care of yourself, make sure that you're examining that, and have people around you to support you, and just be bold, be you, take, like, you don't necessarily always need to be making big steps or big moves or whatnot. You can just take the next step forward, and yeah, try and be a bit better than you were yesterday. So that's it. Yeah, you can find me on social, on Instagram, Third Culture Kingdom, Facebook, Third Culture Kingdom, and subscribe to the podcast, and on Apple, Spotify, or wherever, and then, yeah, you can also watch me on the Azamlu's channel on the Whole Truth, so you can check that out.
Absolutely.
As well.
Yeah. So the episodes and information I mentioned, it will be in the episode notes. And thank you so much for coming, David.
No, thanks for having me, Ping. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to Chai with Ping. If you think someone will benefit from this episode, don't forget to share with them. You can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram. If you like my show, you can buy me a chai with small gifts. Details are in the episode notes. Till next time!